Back in the 90s, when I had served after the Gulf War, I saw an opportunity for small business, and I felt that I had some expertise in construction and engineering and aviation. And actually, having grown up on a farm in Maine, I saw things that we could do as Maine people.
Philip Lander feels privileged to look back on a military career spanning more than 35 years. He continues to apply that experience to building a business and encouraging other veterans to strike out on their own.
Veterans have special challenges because they are called away oftentimes to distant lands, and they're expected somehow to keep all their personal and business accounts going during that time.
If I was to give some advice to any service member, perhaps current active duty or guard, reserve, or someone who's out and or retired like I was, do your due diligence. Take your ideas, write them down. And my first stop would be with the Maine Small Business Development Center.
There is a federal law called the Service Members Civil Relief Act, which as a general matter prohibits creditors from advancing claims when a service member is called to active duty and is not around to defend himself or herself. Credit is the ability to obtain a good or service today and pay for it at a later time. Ordinarily, credit is accompanied by an interest or a cost for that deferred payment. And obviously, it's very important both for consumers and for small businesses to obtain credit. It would be nice if we could all save money in the bank and then spend it on items we wanted to buy or services we needed to obtain. But for most of us, credit, a line of credit, or availability of credit is very important. So to even out the cash flow and to make purchases and then to make money from those purchases, most businesses find credit necessary. My business regulates consumer credit reporting agencies. The three major ones are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Those are basically repositories of our credit histories. Most major creditors, our mortgage companies, our auto finance companies, our banks, whoever we do business with, report every month electronically to the credit reporting agencies, and they store all this information on us. There are both federal and state laws protecting us. Those are called the Fair Credit Reporting Acts. And what those laws say is that if the information in our credit report is somehow used against us, if a creditor decides not to extend further credit based on our credit report, or makes an item more expensive because of our credit report information, we're entitled to know that. We're entitled to be notified that the credit report is the basis of the decision and that the contents have cost us somehow money. We are then entitled to access our credit report for free. There's an official government website, annualcreditreport.com, all one word, annualcreditreport.com. We can go to that site and answer a few questions to identify ourselves, and if we're prepared for it, our credit report will appear right on the screen. If there are any errors, I recommend that people request and require that the error be fixed rather than trying to explain it. But if there are cases in which there truly was an explainable circumstance, an unexpected illness, death of a family member, something that caused it, we all have the right to put 100 words, I think, right in the credit report and explain that. Several different companies have each put out their own credit score with their own scale, which makes things a little bit confusing. By and large, credit scores in the high 600s, mid 700s, and even low 800s, that's really the range that you see most frequently. Someone with a high 700 or low 800 score is ordinarily entitled to or can expect to receive the best rates for credit, the best premium rates for insurance, and so on. In the 700s, consumers may expect to be charged slightly more, and if you're below 680, 670, you can expect either to have credit denied or to have it be very expensive for you. Ordinarily, if you are surprised by the low nature of your credit score, you can figure it out by looking at your credit report. It's a straight mechanical derivative of the credit report. So if you have a surprisingly low score, it's very likely that there's an error or a mistake or an item that's incomplete in your credit report itself. So rather than worrying about the number, we send consumers back to their credit reports because they do have very free access to that. And usually, if there's a surprisingly low score, there's no mystery as to how it happened. It's all laid out right there. By and large, creditors have short memories, and credit report information that is, even though the limit is 7 years, items older than 7 years generally don't appear on your report. Creditors are generally willing to forgive items once they get 2, 3, 4 years out. The way to improve your score is to start small, to take out small accounts, and to pay them back regularly. There's no real mystery to that. Some people think that by not using any credit, they are going to be entitled to a good score because they've been able to plan and pay cash. In fact, unfortunately, the best scores are those of us with a moderate number of accounts, and there are metrics that go into the formula. Usually a retail store, a department store credit card, usually 1 or 2 bank credit cards, sometimes an auto loan and a small loan at a bank. Somebody with the highest score has a moderate number of accounts and a history of prompt repayment of those accounts. If a veteran finds that his or her credit report has been negatively affected by things that have happened while they've been away or while they've been on active duty, we can help them through implementing and utilizing the Federal Service Member Civil Relief Act. And that protection also extends to immediate members of the family. A spouse of a service member also may have protections under that law. It's a very powerful federal law. Creditors don't want to get tangled up with it, and we've had some success in dealing with creditors who are willing to undo things that they've put on someone's credit report or affected someone's credit score if they are aware that the debtor or the spouse of the debtor is involved in active military duty.
One of the things I found as a stumbling block back in the 90s, when we had many deployments of soldiers going on with the Gulf War, the Panama incident in the 80s, and then the problems with Bosnia and Croatia, was we were deployed constantly. So when I would go to a bank to ask for money, it was obvious that the bank was concerned, why would we give this veteran money when he's not going to be here to manage his company?
Many times the owners of their own accord will invest their own funds into that business. They'll use their own personal credit card and drive up their own credit in order to keep the business going. There is a distinction between personal or consumer credit and business credit, and that's very important for people to keep in mind. All the laws that we think of as protecting us, truth in lending and fair credit reporting and fair credit billing, apply primarily to consumer loans and consumer credit and consumer debt. The consumer protection laws still apply. For example, if you use your credit card for funding toward your business, in my view, you will still be protected because it's your personal credit card.
You have to expect, as a veteran and a business owner, that you're going to have to draw into your own finances.
There are 2 major ways in which consumer credit and commercial credit mix with respect to Maine small businesses. The first is that many creditors will require a personal guarantee if they're going to extend a business credit. They'll require the personal guarantee of the proprietors or owners of that business.
If I had to start over again and the things that I might do differently, I probably would have been into the Maine Small Business Development Center sooner. I knew the resource was there, and there wasn't any issues, yes or no, but until I knew that I was at a point that I needed financing, I was not prepared. And actually, my financial institution is the one that recommended that I go there to get prepared, so I had good advice from them.
We have seen underfinanced companies that get 60% of the way through a process and haven't planned for the slow startup or for the final stages. We've also seen folks who have gotten in over their heads have somehow overprojected revenues from their business and then have trouble starting up. Many businesses form into some sort of business entity, whether it's a corporation, a limited liability company, a professional corporation, and the purpose of that is to protect the assets of the individuals who are involved in forming the business. In order to avail themselves fully of the protections, the folks have to remember to only do business as that company because the protections are only there to a corporation if the corporation does business in the corporate name, if it issues checks in the corporate name, if it borrows in the corporate name, and so on. So obviously businesses will seek legal advice when they develop or form corporations, and they should also talk with their legal advisor about how to ensure that they are putting themselves out to the public as a business rather than individuals. Because if the individuals within a corporation begin to do business personally in their own name, and so that consumers or others think of them as being individuals, then it may be that those individuals are putting their own personal assets at risk for businesses or debts of the corporation. So if you're going to form a corporation to protect yourself, you need to do business as that corporation and make sure that contracts, checks, and all other indications out to the public are done in that corporate name. Companies can look, small businesses can look, is to their regulator. Maine also has an office called Business Answers, which is designed to be a sort of a one-stop shop for businesses to contact. And the individuals in that small office have a list of all the resources in the state and will refer cases back out. I think that's part of the Department of Economic and Community Development, and it's a good resource as well. The best process is for folks to take their time, do things right. It's better to plan in advance than it is to try to undo a situation once folks have gotten ahead of their planning. We've worked with veterans over the years at the Bureau of Consumer Credit Protection, and they do face some very real challenges. They have been away for a while, and so they have to catch up on what's going on and what the current trends are. Credit reports may show a gap where nothing has happened. The good news is if they've done careful planning, nothing bad has happened to their credit report, but they also haven't established new credits. If there are items if collection activity has been taken against them and if that has resulted in notations of that activity or in liens, we can invoke the Service Member Civil Relief Act and try to undo any damage that's been done there, and so we can be helpful there. Don't give up, be prepared for a challenge, find the resources that are out there, and don't be afraid to ask our office for help in that process.
To meet with a business counselor, contact the Maine Small Business Development Centers.